I just want to put out a little notice to disclose that none of this video is sponsored. Tip 1 is to research yourself. This may seem like a lazy tip. I thought I'd get the boring, obvious one out of the way first. A few tips and methods that I use myself have come from Pinterest, which is one that I would definitely go and check out. The amount of communities on there, the amount of pinboards you can make, the way that it recommends things to you, its algorithm is great. I love Pinterest itself, and I would definitely recommend going and checking it out and using that. Speaking of so much to find, Reddit is definitely a good place to go to as well. I personally haven't used it in a while, but I will be soon, hopefully when I get my new PC, which is something exciting that I'm looking forward to. But I remember when I was in my GCSEs, I used r/GCSE a lot, so I know that exists. But I'm sure other places like r/A-level, r/notes, r/student, or even r/education in general probably exist too. So there are communities for everything on Reddit, so I would definitely go and check that out. I'll also link all of my resources in the description and or the pinned comment below. My second tip is to use symbols and abbreviations. So what that means is instead of saying with, without, and, because, therefore, or, you can just abbreviate and symbolize with a W/O, an ampersand or a plus, a dotted triangle aiming down. Oh, that's embarrassing, I just did the same thing, ignore that. A dotted triangle aiming up, and a slash. I also like to write and or with the ampersand and then a slash. It's a lot quicker and more efficient. One thing that I do to manipulate this method is make it subject specific. So for instance, instead of writing computer science, I could just write CS. Instead of writing theatre studies, I could draw the symbol for it, you know, with the comedy and the tragedy masks. And instead of writing media, I could just draw a camera. And this is also about subject specific words. So for instance, in computer science, I always hear and write about object-oriented programming. On computers, I write it with a star at the end. I can then search for it because I'll never use that star. But if I want to write it like that, I can. And then when I search for that star, I can then find O-OP star and replace it with this word, object-oriented programming. But in my notes, I would just do OOP or OOP. Tip 3. So I would recommend using post-it notes and highlighters. I'd also get these little post-it note page markers too to signify key pages and key areas where your information will be. And I would use post-it notes for little notes, reminders, etc., things like that. You should also organise your highlighters like such so that you can separate what they all mean and what different types of key information you have, and you could even do the same with your post-it notes. Another thing I like to do is just write under the post-it notes too. I did this with anything I glued in secondary school, and I will do this forever. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break now just to recap everything I've gone over and have a little breather. My first tip was to research yourself, and examples of resources can be found in the description and or pinned comment below. My second was to use symbols and abbreviations, also do subject-specific ones. I would definitely get like a page or something if you can't remember them, just to write them down so that you have that as a reference when you're note-taking. Because if you get a really long word like anti-disestablishmentarianism, you're going to want to shorten this down to A for anti, D for dis, E for establish, or ELSH for establish, M for ment, A for air, R for re, ANSM for anism. Anti-disestablishmentarianism, that. And it's the same thing both times, but one's shorter and quicker to read, and you know what it means, so it doesn't really matter. One thing that definitely helps with note-taking at A level, less so with other year groups and courses that you'll be doing, is that teachers don't really care how you take your notes, because it's your notes. I remember in secondary school how ridiculous it was that the teachers were like so critical about the way I take my notes, because it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm taking the book back at the end of the summer. No one's going to look at that. I mean, I know they want to like present them every now and then, and fine, I'll make a new page and tidy up my notes then. But I'm not going to spend an hour highlighting the title because I wanted it to look nice, when I could spend an hour making messy notes and clean it up, and we'll get back to that later because I do want to explain myself on that. And to end off the tip recap, my third tip was to just use post-it notes and highlighters, and the little post-it note page markers too. The final thing I want to say in this break is if you are worried about maybe not having all of these materials or abilities, don't worry about it. I'll do another general video where I'll just go over the best materials to get and the cheapest ways to get them. So the recommended end card video will be that, if it's out now, but if not, it will just go back to the intro video, so you might have to wait a little time for me to get that done. But yeah, alright, let's get back to the tips now. So my fourth tip is something I like to do a lot, and that is bullet points. If you do just a simple dot on a line, you can write all your key information after that, and then do like sub-bullet points and stuff, which can be done with arrows, dashes, thicker bullet points, or different shapes, but the main thing that you need to keep in mind, especially, never forget to indent, because that is how you separate the information from the sub-information from the sub-sub-information, and so on. So the next tip, tip 5, is to use colours in your text, and I want you to highlight any keywords that you're writing down. You can use all sorts of pens. You can use cased biros like I am here, really cheap, good Bic ones. I love a Bic pen. I also have a few different fine liners, and I do have Scribblicious pens. And I also like to occasionally write with highlighters. I see no problem with that. Tip number 6 is to use additional items, which honestly sounds a lot more complex than it actually is, but it's essentially just livening up your work and making it look nicer and pop more with drawings, the little highlighters, stuff like that. So yeah, but make sure you only do this after lessons and note-taking sessions, and do the same, only do it after lessons and note-taking sessions, with your highlighter usage. I don't want you to spend your whole lesson highlighting all the key information. I want you to do that after, or when you have a free point in that lesson, to just highlight things when you're doing nothing, because you don't want to waste your time highlighting when there are more notes to be taken. When the notes stop coming in, then highlight the key things and go through those notes. Which segues nicely into the next tip, which is my penultimate tip. Do planned recaps, and in addition to this, do quick noting. So for planned recaps, if you take drama notes on the 1st of November, I would go over those notes just a week later, or maybe even 4 days and then the week as well, just to make sure that you can master these. And quick noting is just a quick note I want to make, which is just, you can make things really messy, like really super messy. Then after that lesson, in one of your frees, or when you're free in that lesson, when you're doing nothing, when you're recapping whatever, you can also just tidy it up, make it look a lot nicer, and just generally add some nice tips to it, little drawings, things like that, which was part of tip 6. Finally, my last tip is that I would prepare for flashcards. Whether it's virtual or physical, make sure that you do flashcards or some kind of memory test. And when you're preparing, write your statements in ways that can easily be turned into questions. So for instance, the fox does run. Does the fox run? I really do think this can help, and it really does help when you put in a nice statement that you can just easily put onto a flashcard as a question, and then on the back rewrite that statement. I think it makes it easy to make the flashcards, easy to understand the flashcards, and you're done. If it's good to do your notes like that, it will be good to have an answer like that on your flashcard. But don't forget about these flashcards. Maybe keep them in the book if you must, paperclip them to the page, whatever. Do not lose these flashcards, or if you're doing virtually, make sure you keep doing them frequently. Virtual ones can sometimes be better because it tells you how good your memory strength is and stuff, and it can go through it with you like that, but I'm personally not sure how much I trust that. I also just want to put in one final honourable mention, and it is that, I mean, I don't do this, but I know a lot of people do like to split their book in two, and they'll take all their notes on their right page and then mark up their right page on their left with green pen or something, going over things that they can improve, stuff like that. I have done that in this video. I've written everything on the right page every time, and that's just to relate to those people, but I personally don't do that generally. But I know that there are a couple of people who like to do this out there. I just like to write on both pages, but if you want to write on exclusively the right page and use the left for corrections, I have no problem with this, and I know a lot of people like to do that, and I know it can help. And it does help a lot of people, because it makes all your notes really simple to see on the right page, and then the left page, which should be a lot blanker because you shouldn't be correcting it to a full page's worth, can look a lot calmer, and it can make your brain probably a bit more at ease. So maybe test that out for yourself. Alright, that's all of my tips for today. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, so as the credits roll out, I do have to do a final end card. I've got 20 seconds, 15 now, great. Resources are in the description and on the pinned comment below, so go check those out. The next video should be what to buy for cheap and the best, if not it's the intro, and make sure you subscribe. Yeah, see you later, Epic Jamers.